another episode of the A Miracle Marketing Podcast, where we bring you interviews from business owners, celebrity guests, and hot topics. I am your host, Brandon Adams, along with my co-host, super producer, Big Perion. What's going on, my brother? How are you today?
Very excited. It's a beautiful day, and I'm just excited about this interview. How about you? How you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm excited about doing this interview myself. And we're going to tell our fans who our special guest is in just a short moment. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. And if you would like to be a guest on the show or advertise, send us an email to A Miracle Podcast. I can't believe it's already November.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, November already. You got big plans coming up for the holidays?
Well, my holidays are dictated by my kids.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and tell you who our special guest is. On today's show, we have a very special guest, and it is the mother of Big Perion, who has some information she's going to share with us. She has a book out. She is an author, Miss Bessie Hunter. Her book is called Blood on My Mudcake. Hold it up a little bit so we can see it one more time, Miss Hunter. All right. All right. So I'm going to do some deferring today and refer the show to Perion. Perion, start it off. Let's go.
Well, first of all, I'm very excited about this interview because it's something I've been wanting to do for a long time. This young lady is a legend in my eyes. You know, most of the time, with me having kids now, growing up, you don't really tell your kids everything you've been through until they're able to understand and ask questions. So a lot of the stuff I found out as an adult I didn't know as a child, but if I would have known it, every one of my teachers would have known. I would have had my mama at every event at school. But I'm so excited to introduce to the world Miss Bessie Houser Hunter. She is a foot soldier of the original voters' rights movement, which started in Selma, Alabama. And without further ado, I want to present to you my mother, Miss Bessie Houser Hunter. So, Mom, well, I'm for the interview, I'm gonna keep it politically correct. So, Miss Hunter, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and growing up in Selma, Alabama?
Sure. I am Bessie Houser Hunter. I grew up in Selma, Alabama, attended the R.B. Hudson High School in Selma, Alabama. When I was a child, I grew up under the clouds of segregation in Selma, Alabama. It was the norm for me, so I did not know that I was under the cloud of segregation until I was in my teens. And that was when I attended the R.B. Hudson High School, and we had activists to come in from different places to, they were concerned about the voting rights of the people of color in Selma, Alabama, because when we had the right to register, we were not given the privilege to pass the test. The registrars would make it so difficult for us that we could not pass the test. They would give us questions like, how many bubbles in a bottle of soap? Was your great grandfather a member of the war, of the military? If you know, questions like that we had no answers for. You could only miss one question on the test. If you miss one question, you failed the test already. So there was no way that we could pass the test. even teachers and professors took the test. They could not pass the test because of the difficulty of the test. So they decided that something needed to be done in order for people of color to gain the right, number one, to vote. And that way we would have a right to have a say-so in how our community, our city, our state, or whatever could be run. We could vote for people to be in office that would be doing the right thing and would give us equal access to have the privilege to vote for who we wanted to be in office, or who we thought would be the best person for our benefit. So I was when I realized that we needed to really fight for this freedom is whenever our people, when people that was in the upper echelon of our society, on the parts of the Black people, when they would at that time we were called colored. The colored people, we were told that, you know, we needed to get together and make some decisions as to how to go about legislating a plan in order to make this come into fruition. So we had Dr. Martin Luther King, who at that particular time was working on the issue with the bus boycott in Montgomery, Alabama, with Rosa Parks, who refused to give up her seat to a white man on the bus, and she was incarcerated for that. We had an organization of men, where they call them the Crazy Eight, but it was really 8 people, men and women, that got together, and Dr. Reese really spearheaded the whole process to get Dr. Martin Luther King to come to Selma and give instructions on how to set up a plan for protests and boycotts or whatever it would take, cause the city of Selma to come into compliance with giving people of color the right to vote, and also taking down some of the signs of segregation, where there was many signs of segregation back in that time, in that day when I was coming up. There was not equal privileges to bathrooms and to water fountains, to eating venues. They had signs up everywhere, you know, for whites only. And then some had, if there was 2 SS, it would be white on one and colored on the other. And I can remember downtown when we would go to town, and if you needed to use the restroom, they had a couple of restrooms, but the ones for the Blacks, the door was not able to be locked. It was always ajar, and the people did not have really privacy when they went in. You have to have somebody to stand at the door and kind of watch out for you, or hold the door while you use the bathroom. The water fountain for the whites was cold. The water would be cool and free flowing, but in the Black, the fountain for the color, it would be just a spigot of just the spigot would just be a trickle of water would come out of it. But when it was really hot downtown, you were go to get a drink of water, you would almost have to put your mouth on the spigot and suck it out in order to get to, and it was not cold, it was like hot and fat tasting. But next to the color spigot was a white fountain. And when someone white would go up to their water fountain and press the pedal to get a drink of water, the water would just flow all over the top of the plate onto the ground, and it would splash on your feet, and it was cold, and you just almost had a desire to get down there and suck up the water off the ground, and it felt good.
Miss Hunter, did you ever have the opportunity to meet Dr. King?
Of course I did. Yes, many times.
What was that experience like?
It was scary because my three of my siblings, my three of my sisters and we when we had the mass meetings there, that was giving information as to what the next move would be and what we needed to do in order to accomplish the boycotts of the sit-ins, whatever, the marches, whatever we were going to do. The mass meetings were to issue that information, because, like, you know, we didn't have, like, phones weren't readily accessible to Blacks. Many homes did not have phones. We didn't have Facebook and all these other social media outlets. So the way we would get information around was through the mass meetings, and also we would paddle the streets and pass out papers that was written with instructions on it. And Dr. King would come and to the mass meetings and do speeches. And my three sisters and I, we didn't have much money to contribute to the mass meetings. So we would go home at night, we would write songs and sing the songs at the mass meetings, entertain the masses. And that was our contribution to the mass meetings. Dr. King would be there, you know, to give his speech or whatever he was going to tell us on those different occasions. And my three sisters and I would be on the stage where he was, and that was really, you know, scary and shaky, because that was a new thing for us. And I can remember when we did the march from Selma to Montgomery. The first march that we did, which was Bloody Sunday, it was named Bloody Sunday because of the danger and the abuse that we incurred on the bridge that day. It was named Bloody Sunday, and it is also celebrated every year. The first weekend in March is considered Jubilee, and that's when we go to commemorate that scene of Bloody Sunday. But when we did the march from Selma to Montgomery, yes, Dr. King was on that march. He was not on the march from when we did Bloody Sunday out of town, and but when we did the march from Selma to Montgomery, it was scary. It was dangerous. It was we had a lot of inclement weather, and we didn't have any place. We would do like 10 miles a day, trekking from Selma to Montgomery. We would do like 10 miles a day, and we would camp out in pastures along the way. There were several pastures along the way that allowed us the privilege to camp out in their pastures. And so we had some tents, but everybody couldn't be in the tent. But we had air mattresses, which was really a joke, because as soon as you blow them up and lay on them, they go flat on the ground. And so you would either be in the mud or in the ant bed or whatever. But it was all worthwhile in the end, because in the end we did encounter the we encountered the Voting Rights Act, which gave us the privilege to vote. Now, I experienced a very horrific encounter when I was peacefully protesting to have the right to vote. I was not of voting age, but I was at that particular time. I was not of voting age, but I was peacefully protesting for my parents and others like my parents to have the right to vote. So as we were protesting downtown at the courthouse to register to vote, there were several school buses that they had parked in front of the courthouse and around the corner from the courthouse, because there was so many people standing in line from the courthouse around the corner for blocks to try to register to vote. And Jim Clark, who was the sheriff at that particular time, he was telling us to disperse, to get away from there, that we were not, we were breaking the law by being in that area, congregated like that. So I suddenly felt a jab in my right side, and it was his billy club jabbing me in the side, pushing me onto one of the school buses. They arrested many people that day, many children, and one of the things that was really awesome about the whole movement was that it was the children that really spearheaded fighting. I mean, vigorously fighting nonviolently by following the orders and the regulations by Dr. Martin Luther King. It was really us from the high school that we would skip school and go to the mass meetings, and whenever they were suddenly ordered, and the superintendent threatened the principal that there would be dire consequences against him if he did not gain control of us, the students, and stop all that absenteeism and walking off from school, going to the mass meetings. So after we were arrested, most of the children, most of it was just children being incarcerated. But it was too many to put in jail. So some of them was taken to prison camps, some was taken to warehouses, some were taken to just pastures, instant pastures. And I was lucky enough to be taken to the jail. And when I got to jail, I was really devastated, because I didn't feel the real impact until I heard those doors clank closed, and it seems like it was all final then. And I looked around, and it was 36 of us in one cell, 36 girls in my cell. There were 2 bunk beds with naked, tattered mattresses, where they weren't dirty, they were filthy. And then it was one sink in the room which had a constant annoying drip that and the cold water did not turn on at all. One commode in the corner with a partial roll of toilet tissue on top, which disappeared rapidly, because with 36 girls in my cell, there was no way, we could they could keep us supplied with tissue. And so when we did request tissue, and they brought it, it disappeared rapidly, because it was time for some of the girls monthly, and they used it, as instead of the pads. So it was really a horrific scene. The commode filled up rapidly, and it did not have a good flush mechanism, so it just piled up to the top with body waste. And I can remember being in that cell. In the daytime, it was piping hot, and at night it was freezing cold. But 36 of us couldn't fit on the mattresses, so those two bunk beds. So we didn't want to sleep on them anyway because they were so filthy. So we would lay on the floor and use our jackets or coats for our cover. And in the daytime, we just suffered with the heat. But we used to sing, sing, sing. We would sing our gospel songs, and it would sound so good. That was our way to be entertained, while we were on lockdown. We would just sing our gospel songs and sing our freedom songs. And I can remember our first meal of the day. We had like our first breakfast that next morning after we were incarcerated. The next morning we had black eyed peas with no seasoning. We did have a biscuit, and it was the biggest biscuit I've ever seen in my life. But our next meal was just black eyed peas, and that's what we had for the 8 days that I was in jail. Twice a day we would have black eyed peas, and they would have no seasoning in them. But
I want to ask you a question too, Mom, Miss Hunter. Now, during the movement, according to what I know and according to your book, you and your sisters were nurses, and one of the patients that you took care of was a civil rights activist by the name of Jimmie Lee Jackson.
yes.
Can you tell me what was his part in the movement? What part did he play in the movement?
Okay, Jimmie Lee Jackson was from Marion, Alabama, and he was active in the civil rights movement. He had tried to register many times and with failure also. That night, another activist that was there, Mr. Earn, he was incarcerated, leading protests and boycotts and sit-ins in Marion, Alabama. He was in jail, and it had been rumored that they were going to kill him that night. So at the mass meeting, they decided that they would march to the jailhouse, and protest, if, his release from the jail. And as they attempted to march from the jailhouse from the church to the jailhouse, the street lights were turned off, and then the posse and the deputized men, the Klansmen, everybody that was against the movement, that was participating as an adversary, they started attacking the people from the mass meeting. Some of them ran back in the church. Some ran as wherever they could find a good hiding place. Some of them ran into Max Cafe, which was behind the church. So when Jimmie Lee Jackson's mother and his grandfather, KJ Lee, ran into the cafe, when Jimmie Lee Jackson got in the cafe, he saw them beating his parents, his mother and his grandfather. So he went to try to release them. And when he did, they jacked him up against the wall and shot him twice in the abdomen. And then they continued to beat him as he ran away from the cafe outside, and he fell on the pavement, I hear. And then they took him to jail and processed him. And then when they realized how badly he was hurt, they let them bring him in a car to Good Samaritan Hospital, 30 miles away, to Selma, Alabama. And that's where I was working on the second floor at Good Samaritan Hospital. When they brought him in. My supervisor, Vera Booker, called me to come down to the emergency room because she knew that I was active in the civil rights movement. She knew that Jimmie Lee Jackson was from Marion, and he had been shot due to being active in the movement. So she called for me to come downstairs to help attend him. And when I came down, it was awful. He was in a lot of pain, and he had his you can see his intestines poking out about the size of a grapefruit. And so and he had a laceration on his head. So what I did was put normal saline dressings on his abdomen just to keep it wet so that his gut wouldn't dry out. And then Dr. Dinkins was called in. He was a black doctor. He came in, took him to surgery, and sutured up the laceration on his head. But he didn't do anything for his abdomen. So after he came back from surgery and his head sutured, I took him to the second floor to a room, and that's where I took care of him the rest of the night. And every night when I came on duty, I was assigned to him as one of my patients. And on that Sunday night when I came in, it was leading up to the 8th day, they told me to prepare Jimmie Lee for surgery. This was like at midnight. And so I did. I gave him a bath and got him ready and shaved for surgery. And on the way to the surgical suite, Jimmie Lee took my hand and he said, sister, he said, I want you to stay as sweet as you are. He said, and do like Dr. King has taught us to do, to fight, but fight non-violently. He said, I may not come back, but if I don't come back, don't worry. He said, I'll be all right. He had already told me that he knew who had shot him, but he didn't want to reveal it because he did not want his family to be in harm's way because of, him revealing who had really shot him. It was years.
We're running short of time, but I want to transition real quick before we go so we can get the information about your book. So your book is called Blood on My Mudcake. Can you tell us what inspired you to write the book?
I wrote the book because the many things that happened to me during my childhood. When I was growing up, I enjoyed playing in a playhouse. I would make a makeshift playhouse at the side of my house with old tattered sheets or linens or whatever that was not used more for linen on the bed. I would use them with sticks and tin to make me a little house on the side of my home. So I would go in there and I had my little kitchen. I would use berries and leaves and rocks or whatever as my food. And I would make mud cakes, which was using dirt and water to make mud pies. A lot of people call them mud pies, but I call them mud cakes because that's what I always called them. And and I enjoyed doing that. And I would make my little dolls out of grass threads that we get off of the ice blocks and wedge them in soda bottles and for the hair. And that was just so fulfilling and enjoyable for me. But then as time went on, when my mother would send me to what we call the day old bakery or to one of the grocery stores around one of the corner stores around the corner from my house, we called it the neighborhood store. When two of the proprietors in that neighborhood, they would sexually assault me. So when I go to the store, they would wait on everybody in the store except me, and then he would put a sign in the window that said, "Be right back." And then after he was done with me, he would press 2 nickels in my hand and tell me to be a good girl and pat me on the head. And so I was so frightened. When I would look around to see if anybody saw me, I would drop the 2 nickels on the ground and kick sand over them to cover them, because I didn't want anybody to know that I had money, and especially how I got the money. So when I got home, I would be so devastated. Instead of going into my my house, my playhouse to play and make my mud cakes, I would go there to try to figure out what had happened to me, because my mama hadn't taught me the facts of life, and I I didn't know I didn't know that my genitals was used for anything other than to pee pee or TT out of. So I was just devastated. So I called it blood on my mud cake, because it was like they had just bled all over my childhood, love, which was my mud cakes in my playhouse. And as I as I as time went on, whenever my mother wanted to send me to the store, I would just get violently ill, and I would vomit to show proof of, how sick I would be. Then she would send another one of my siblings to the store, and she would get a bottle of castor oil. So, and when they come back, she would give me 2 tablespoons of castor oil, which I would just vomit each time, because I am so highly sensitive to it. And so I, both the rapes and the castor oil was so repulsive to me. I But yeah, that's how I came up with the name Blood on My Mudcake.
I saw Dr. Cornel West gave you a review, which is huge. So how did that come about? And we're running short of time, so I want to quickly get how that came about, and then also want to tell our viewers where they could find it, where they could buy it, and where to purchase the book.
Okay. Yes. Dr. Cornel West reviewed and one of my books, even before, I think it was before it was even published, and he gave me a good review on it, and because he knew some of the people that I had named that were in the book, and 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 I appreciate that too, how he gave me such a good review on it, and I appreciate the fact that he even thought enough of me to give me a review on the book. Um, the I want to also tell you about Dr. Walker too. Dr. Walker was my neighbor, and he treated 2 of my siblings with sickle cell anemia from infancy until the time that they were adults. Um, his He lived across the street from us. His daughter she was the wife of the renowned John Johnson, who was who was over the Johnson and Johnson
Publications.
yes, and also his wife. They did the Ebony magazine and the Jet magazine. His daughter, they Dr. Walker's daughter and John Johnson had a daughter named Linda Johnson, but she was a Rice by marriage. And then they adopted a son. His name was John also. But
real quick, Miss Hunter, I don't mean to cut you off, because we have less than a minute. Where can the viewers buy the book?
The book is on Amazon, and it's also on Kindle.
Kindle, okay.
Yes, And I saw one review where it was also at Walmart, but they didn't have any available. Also, you can go on Amazon and order it. Blood on My Mudcake. Mudcake is one word. It's just mudcake. It's not mud and then cake. It's mudcake. Blood on My Mudcake. Bessie Houser Hunter.
Okay.
And it should be like $12.99
All right.
on
All right. Well, we gotta run because we have less than a minute, but I want to thank you for being on the show. Thank you for sharing your story. We definitely want to get our viewers to purchase it. We'll be promoting this, and we'll definitely have you back on the show because we want to hear some more of your stories. And Black History Month is coming up around the corner, so we would definitely love to have you on at that time. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in. And thank you, Ms. Hunter, for being on the show, and have a great day.
Thank y'all.
Y'all
Thank you, Mom. You too.